I want to add one more announcement is there will be a Chinese Bible study that will be starting this week too. And on Wednesday, we will have a slide that will give you all the details. I am Nancy Smith, and I'm one of your chaplains here, and I am delighted that you are here today. Friday, we started a series called The 4 Big Lies, and today we're going to look at the second lie. We're going to uncover the lie of imperfection. But before we start with the lie, I want to begin with the truth. Hear this truth from God. My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness. So I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities, for the sake of Christ. For whenever I am weak, then I am strong. Can weakness produce strength? Is it true for whenever I am weak, then I am strong? It seems like an upside-down concept. In fact, I think we naturally resist acknowledging, admitting, or showing our weakness. Being perfect looks and sounds so much better than being weak. Brené Brown is an author that has done extensive research on this topic. Listen to what she says in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Perfectionism is a shield that we carry with a thought process that says this: if I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, and do it all perfectly, then I can avoid or minimize feeling shame, blame, or judgment. It is easier to reach for the mask and cover up our weakness. The lie that our imperfection is best hidden is so tempting. But God is offering to us grace. My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness. I want you to hear how God is creating stories out of weakness. I want you to meet Shirley Samuel. She is the first person here in the picture. She's a recent grad, 2014, and she is currently living on St. Vincent Island. She is beginning her second year of medical school. Listen to what she shared in her recent email to me. The theme of my life the last few years has been grace, the pure, sweet, unadulterated grace of God. There is nothing more powerful than that, and it drives me to my knees every day. I am here because of His grace. I'm only surviving, but in fact, I'm thriving in medical school because of His grace. Grace, the pure, sweet, unadulterated grace of God. Well, there's more to Shirley's story, and I want her to tell you a little of that. Listen in.
All my life, I'd put my identity in my academic performance. Since it was the one thing I was good at, I found my worth in my grades. I grew up in India, where the level of academic competition is very high, and I did well in that environment. I was that person everyone knew to be smart, and people expected me to do well, so I did. My parents were proud of my report cards, and I would push myself harder just to hear that pride in their voice. I was overly competitive that if anyone scored higher than I did in a certain subject, I would work harder just to beat them. So after 12 years of that kind of life, I began seriously questioning my worth when I got a C in physics at the end of my first semester. I felt, and I quote from my journal, stupid, dumb, and useless.
Stupid, dumb, and useless. The lie, stupid, dumb, and useless, whispered in her ears. God's voice, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness. Living into the lie that imperfection will wreck our life is a false belief. In fact, our weaknesses can be the very act that invites God's power into our lives. Well, the second story I want you to hear will involve you jumping in the Hope College minivan. We're going to travel down I-75, heading back to Michigan from Nashville. You can join me in on the conversation with the student in the passenger seat. All the other students are fast asleep in the back of the van. Let me describe the student in the passenger seat to you. She's beautiful, smart, leadership skills, kind, and I could go on and on. In fact, one of the things that she taught me and introduced me to Spotify, but I have to confess, I fell back into Pandora. Well, anyway, you would like her. Through hours of conversation, we were able to get a glimpse of each other's lives. and then tears began streaming down her face after she responded to the question, "What has been the hardest thing for you at Hope College?" Her response was, "Being surrounded by students that come from great families. I feel like I don't fit." And this is what I remember the most. She went on to say, "I'm afraid that someday when I find a guy and I bring him home, he will no longer want me." We sat for a few minutes in silence as we drove down the highway I-75, all the way back to Michigan. The ache is deep. The lie, "I don't fit," whispered in her ears. The lie, "Nobody wants me," whispered in her ears. God's voice, he says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness." Well, the last person I want you to meet is a student I met a few years ago. And let's go to the place that I met her, LJ's, that great coffee shop on the corner when you open up the door and chocolate or cinnamon is just hanging in the air. And I think that morning it was the chocolate raspberry muffins that drew me quickly to the counter. But you know what? I wasn't there for the muffins. I was there to meet this first-year student. We grabbed our cups of 616 coffee, and yes, a chocolate chip raspberry muffin jumped on that plate. And we went over to the table, and she began to tell her story. She was diagnosed at the age of 9 with an autoimmune disease. The diagnosis was given with the news that would have shortened her lifespan. She is a living miracle today of God's grace. She should not be alive today. It is a beautiful testimony of God's power made perfect in physical weakness. Her life is not absent of struggle or pain due to this disease. She is now a junior and has had 2 extensive hand surgeries since her freshman year. In our recent conversation, she shared with me that her condition has made her feel like she is defective. This beautiful junior woman I've grown to respect and admire. And the word defective, they don't go together. The lie, "I'm defective," whispered in her ears. God's voice, "My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness." Well, a few students are coming up on stage, and they're going to help me just illustrate the different weaknesses, imperfections, and then the lies that come along with those when we live in or believe them. And they're each going to hold up a word that is their personal weakness. They are being vulnerable. And so they're going to take their spots. We view imperfection as limiting, less, defective, and the list goes on and on and on. God offers us grace, the pure, sweet, unadulterated grace of God. Listen to this song.
Truth is harder than a lie. The dark seems safer than the light. And everyone has a heart.
So my name is Jillian, and that was the last story that Nancy shared was mine. And God led me to this psalm in the last year that really carried me through those surgeries and just my heart. And when I first read it, it wrecked me, but has sustained me and challenged me in my faith. And I think that this verse as a whole really unravels the heart of God. And it's just a reminder that he has the full picture and that his faithfulness never stops for us. So Psalm 116, 5-9. The Lord is gracious and righteous. Our God is full of compassion. The Lord protects the simple-hearted. When I was in great need, he saved me. Be at rest once more, O my soul, for the Lord has been good to you. For you, O Lord, have delivered my soul from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before the Lord in the land of the living. You may go in peace.